You're ready.
Fire away. Good morning, everyone. We will call this the September 3rd Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up, we have the approval of minutes.
Mr. President, I make a motion we approve the minutes from the regular meeting of Monday, August 19th, as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Accounts payable and vouchers.
Mr. President, I'd like to recommend the claims from August 20th, 2019 through September 3rd, 2019, including the payroll dated August 23rd, 2019, be approved without exception.
Mr. President, I move for approval as submitted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Entertain an ordinance.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion we hear ordinance 2019-25-CM.
Second.
Petitioner.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning. Fine, thank you. Good morning.
There you go. For the record, Dan Teeter, attorney of Riley, Teeter, and Schreier, represent the petitioner. Darren Sorensen, petitioner's representative. He's present and will respond to questions that you might have for him. We received a favorable staff recommendation on this matter. We also received a unanimous yes vote from the Area Planning Commission. This is approximately a 60-acre tract. It's bordered on the south by Kirkpatrick Ditch, Concord and Walmart on the west. DF Properties owns this site and property to the north. That's owned GB and I, and we have residential to the east. If you've been out there, you notice there's some grain elevators and there's some farm accessory building. Those are now being raised. Those will all be gone except for there will remain one house to the north. It's about a 1 acre tract and it's owned by the owner's relative. So that will remain. The first handout that I gave you shows our concept plan. And please keep in mind that it's a concept plan. We did that just to kind of show you what could be done out there. Obviously, this has to go through the subdivision process. It's subject to police, fire, drainage board, highway, and area plan commission comments. So I would suspect that you'll see some changes in this. I don't know that, we don't know what those are because this is the first step. Obviously, after we get past this, then we would start that subdivision process. We're going to develop this in phases. It won't be done all at one time. We're going to have 1 and 2 bedroom apartment units on the site, and we're going to have 1, 2, and a few 3 bedrooms on the duplex site. They all be market rate as well. I think that's positive. Concord Road, as you're aware, can handle the additional traffic that we might have. All utilities are present. The second handout I gave you is from the city of Lafayette indicating that water and sewer is available and that they have the capacity to handle this type of development. So we have no issue with water or sewer as well. I would just comment that petitioner owns over 700 units in this area. His occupancy is 99%. So we believe there's a strong need for this type of product. I think this is an excellent area for it, and we would respectfully request your approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Dan, in regard to the phasing you mentioned, will the apartment units be done first or will the duplexes be done first?
I assume the duplexes would start here at the back. I'm not the developer. They come from the front, go to the back.
Okay. All right.
So the apartment complex is first.
Pardon?
The apartment complex is first and then
Yes.
back to the duplexes.
All right, Mr. Klein, would you answer, we've had some people ask us about the traffic on Concord, what might be looked at, debatable.
It's a fairly large development. You know, we're talking about generating a lot of extra trips in there, but at this point, all we've seen is, as you've seen, is the petition to rezone. We don't really have, this is very, very early planning. When we see the schematics, we'll talk about access points and road development within the apartments and duplexes. And maybe looking at frontage roads or different access points, but we'll work with them at that point. Right now, it's pretty preliminary.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak in favor or opposed to this? Please. Please, make sure you sign in, please.
Where do I do that at?
Right here, right up here.
Right on the podium.
Sorry, I've never done this before. I live in Stone's Crossing, which is just behind the Walmart on Concord. The whole area just recently found out about this, and so I don't know if there's anybody else here or not on the neighborhood network thing that is online. There's been a lot of communication about it, and I understand some people have probably sent in emails to the commission. I just recently bought my house there, a new construction house, invested basically my savings, put it into this home, planning to make that my permanent home. I, as well as many others, have had the same feeling. It's because of the farmland there, it makes it feel like you're in a rural area, you're outside the main city, and now we're going to turn it into some huge city. Somebody said, he said Concord Road can handle the traffic. I don't know how. We sit there, we have one entrance in and out of Stone's Crossing, and you can sit there, I don't know if anyone lives out there or not, but you can sit there waiting to turn out onto Concord Road for 10 minutes. And you want to put 500 more units from their preliminary plans. I understand it's early, but between the 16 apartment buildings at 22 units and the 75 duplexes, you're talking over 500 homes. And so you want to put another 500 to 1,000 cars on that stretch of road. Has anyone looked at the infrastructure for the schools that are at max capacity now? My son is a freshman at McCutcheon, and you know, you've just expanded Woodland School, and water, we don't have the greatest water pressure out there. A lot of people have said you want to take and cut into that water now, and it's gonna, what's that gonna do to our water? Are there gonna be upgrades? Is the county gonna widen Concord Road to 4 lanes? I know Mr. Schuman owns a lot of property, has in Tippecanoe County, and he's got the big bucks, we don't. And chances are you're going to approve whatever. But has anybody taken the time to consider we little people who, that is our one and only home? And, you know, you can't get, you widened 430 to the point of putting in turn lanes, that hasn't solved that problem out there. I don't know if you're familiar with that, the road that runs off of Concord down to 18th Street. You didn't put a stoplight in, you didn't put a roundabout in. You can still sit there. If you're trying to make a left-hand turn off of 430, you're going to still sit there and wait. I have literally waited more than 10 minutes to just pull out of my subdivision because the traffic on that road can be so horrendous. You're talking a 2-lane county road and you want to put all this extra on there because they don't want to bring it out onto veterans or whatever. But right now the preliminary plans say that it goes to, everything comes out onto Concord. So has anyone really done the studies? Has anyone looked at that? Have you considered widening Concord to 4 lanes? Something would have to be done. You're going to, you know, are we going to have a mass exodus out of these subdivisions? Because it's the same thing with Benjamin Crossing. If you're trying to make a left-hand turn or right-hand turn, you know, they're across the way. We're going to be the 2 subdivisions most impacted, but I know there's other subdivisions back behind us. But we're the 2 that come right there out onto Concord Road. And unless you do something there, it's going to, it's going to hurt all of us, and you're going to have people, we have one way in and out, and it's going to hurt the little guy. Like I said, I know that he's big business, we're little guy, but if the schools, the water, the traffic on Concord Road, something's got to be done, something else has to give. So I just ask that you consider, we little people.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Stu, did you want to say something again?
We have been studying traffic along Concord aside from this development, and it is a growing traffic area, and we do have situations. The development at 430 was actually a sight distance safety, not really a traffic calming or volume issue at that improvement. But we have been studying, and there are lane issues and there's access issues, and it is on the radar and was growing, and is and we do anticipate that we'll continue to grow. That whole area is set for residential development, so we know our trips are growing.
So during the subdivision process, you'll take into account the increased traffic from this development?
Yes, and the developer will have to do a traffic impact study as part of their development. So their impact study will play into our study of the whole corridor. We're looking at the corridor from 450 in all the way north, in conjunction with the city of Lafayette, who basically owns the northern reach of that, where actually this will come in. And any development will be worked with the city of Lafayette as to any new signals within their area as part of this development, because the development will be in the county, but the accesses were actually in the city. So there's a whole lot of studies and collaboration that go on with this thing, both for this subdivision and for the corridor as a whole, which are two separate and conjoined issues.
Stu, when do you see the corridor study being executed? Is that going to be that won't happen before the initial meetings on the process?
We'll be expediting, within our office, we're expediting our study because this kind of pushes it to a head. We need to be able to meld this traffic study into our study. So we're trying to make sure they match up in time.
And I don't want to put you on a crunch as far as time in terms of what happens with that or what potentially can happen, because it's far too early for that right now. But it sounds a lot like what we dealt with a couple of years ago when we commissioned the corridor study for the roads out and around Harrison High School, which eventually led to, or currently they're constructing signal system out there for 500 North. So that is, I mean, I know it takes time for that to happen.
Right. There'll be this study, this year. And then, especially in this particular development, because you start looking at laning and traffic patterns, we have to work with the city because they have the stopper to our bottle right there at that access. So whatever we do needs to be in conjunction with what they do, and we may do, whether it be joint projects or just patterning the whole thing to work out.
Okay.
Got it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak in favor or opposed to this ordinance?
I just wanted to indicate it's going to take a year anyway to get through this development. And as we've seen on 600, it takes that time to get through the process, to get the meetings, all that set up. And the same thing will occur here. Additionally, just like on 600, we now have traffic lights going in there and some other issues being resolved. I think you're going to see the same thing here, but I think it's going to be a little quicker because it's next to the city, will probably be at some point even annexed into the city. So I think that shows that, or that will bring in more things to alleviate some of the conditions in there. Be happy to answer any other questions. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I will just make a general comment as a member of the Area Plan Commission. The vote was 12-0, if I recall, in favor of, and then, of course, it comes to us, and it has today. It is very clear that this is the appropriate type of development in that area, and actually kind of natural. Normally, you would like to see that development before we saw Benjamin Crossing and everything else, so that you're not leapfrogging large areas. It is going to be a good mix, and this type of development is what drives. It's very rare that you have all of the infrastructure go into place prior to development like this coming along. But I appreciate the folks that reached out from the neighborhood. Those are genuine concerns about traffic safety, and it is my hope that as the process moves along that we do some things out there that actually improve traffic safety, and those won't be things that come right away. And as Stu pointed out, we realized we had a problem on 430 South, and again, that was site distance, not necessarily traffic volume. This continues to be a fast-growing area in the county, and obviously the infrastructure is going to be picked up as well. So,
Yeah, and the property to the north of this, that borders Veterans Memorial, obviously is prime real estate as well. So, it's going to be developed at some point too, and likely with some sort of commercial, light industrial. I'm not sure exactly what that will be composed of, but it's ripe for development. Then the other thing I wanted to point out, and like I said, we've probably received 6, 8 emails from neighbors, and most of those were in regard to traffic, which I certainly appreciate, and please be assured that will be taken into account as the process moves forward. But some were just in regard to apartments in general, and I always want to clarify that this is going to be market-based pricing, and so in other words, this is not any government subsidized properties, and I always use Foxfire as the example there on Veterans Memorial. That was a property that was built, 15 years ago, and has been impeccably maintained. They have been a great neighbor to the surrounding commercial and residential nodes around it. And in fact, what's happened around Foxfire is single-family residences have actually built up to Foxfire. So that just is saying that they can be good neighbors and are obviously an important component of our mixture of housing in the community. So apartments and duplexes are clearly needed, as illustrated by the current vacancy ratios. So I think the project is worthwhile, and but there's some little kinks that'll need to be worked out during the process, and I'm sure the developer will be happy to help work those things out.
Okay. No more comments? Bob?
Byers?
Yes.
Brown?
yes.
Murtaugh?
Yes.
Ordinance 2019-25 CM passes 3-0.
Okay, next up, we have another ordinance from the Health Department.
Mr. President, I move that we hear on second reading 2019-20-CM.
Second.
Okay, Amanda?
This is just the same as before. We did this because the TB solution that we used before was on back order. We should be able to order within the next couple of weeks our regular solution, but we want to still keep this in the ordinance just in case this ever happens again.
Very good. Any questions?
No, sir.
Anyone in the audience wants to speak in favor or opposed to this ordinance? Seeing no one, Bob?
Brown?
Yes.
Murtaugh?
Yes.
Byers?
Yes.
Ordinance 2019-20 CM passes 3-0 on second and final reading.
Okay, next up, we have another ordinance. Entertain a motion.
And what is the number?
26.
26. Mr. President, I'll make a motion we hear ordinance 2019-26-CM on first reading, which is building permit conflicts of interest.
Second.
Okay, Doug, you want to talk this?
Yeah, this is just responding to a state statute passed earlier this year that requires units to adopt ordinances that address when the building any building official has a conflict of interest. It really ends up only mattering to us, I think, when our building commissioner has a conflict of interest, because it says you can't process a permit where you have a conflict or where your subordinate or supervise somebody if you have a conflict. So if anybody else is having a conflict in the building commission, Mike can supervise or take care of it himself. But if he has one, then you have to have a process for going outside. And we've spoken with Lafayette and West Lafayette, and basically we're going to agree to help them when they're in a conflict situation, and they'll help us when we're in a conflict situation. And for now, it's going to be, I guess that's not part of the ordinance. We've got another interlocal agreement that I'll ask you to consider, assuming this moves forward at the next meeting, where basically we're agreeing to help each other free of charge unless somebody's really, burdening the system more than the others. But in any case, this just says that you can't process a permit if you have a conflict of interest. It says that if a deputy has a conflict, they'll refer it to the building commissioner. If the building commissioner has it, they'll appoint a qualified temporary replacement commissioner, and that the code enforcement officials of Lafayette and West Lafayette qualify as qualified temporary replacements for purposes of that section.
And this is something required from the state that came down, right?
Right. I assume if somebody in some county had a particular problem, and so it became a matter of state interest.
Okay, any questions? Anyone in the audience like to speak for or oppose to this ordinance? See no one? Bob?
Murtaugh,
Yes.
Byers,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Ordinance 2019-26, CM passes 3-0 on first reading.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion, we suspend the rules and hear ordinance 2019-26-CM on second reading.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion, we hear ordinance 2019-26-CM on second final reading.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Got anything else to add, Doug?
Nope.
Okay. Anyone in the audience change your mind or speak for or oppose to this? Seeing no one. Bob?
Byers,
Yes?
Brown,
Yes.
Murtaugh.
Yes.
Ordinance 2019-26, CM passes 3-0 on second and final reading.
Okay, thank you. Grants?
Morning.
Good morning.
I'm asking permission to accept $25,000 from the Indiana State Department of Health for the Hospital Preparedness Program and Public Health Emergency Preparedness, the division of the Tippecanoe County Health Department. The grant will be used for payroll and purchase equipment in 2020.
Mr. President, I'd move for approval to accept the grant as outlined.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to grant permission to accept. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
I would also like to ask permission to receive $5,500 for Judge Person in his Veterans Court to cover continuation of the services, which is chemical testing, participation treatment, housing incentives, transportation, as well as training and administrative demands. This is all from the Indiana Supreme Court.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion, we grant permission to accept the grant as outlined.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to grant permission to accept as stated. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, resolution. Doug, you want to talk this one?
Yeah, you need a motion to move it forward first, or do we need to start talking? This is Resolution 2019-24 CM. In July, you approved extending an offer to Concord Partners South for about a half acre next to the highway garage to help our operations there. Concord Partners accepted, purchase price of $41,240. This resolution authorizes any of the members of the Board of Commissioners to execute the closing documents, and authorizes the treasurer to wire the funds to Stollard and Shoe to complete the closing. It being an amount not to exceed $45,000. The purchase price is $41,240. We'll owe the half of the closing costs. In this case, 45,000 was a round number that gives us $3,760. It'll probably be far less than that, but the hope is to get this finished this week. And so if we came up short, then that'd just delay the process. We're waiting on Stollard to see if we can get it closed this week. Otherwise, the other party might have some scheduling conflicts, so it might be October, but it'll be fine either way, but it'd be nice to get this finished.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Entertain a motion?
Mr. President, I would move for adoption of Resolution 2019-24-CM.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes.
And then, Mr. President, we have one change order on the Fairgrounds project to Fairfield Contractors in the amount of $18,362 for site work, including reseeding 7 acres of the property out there, and I would move for approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the reseeding. This is out in the grassy knoll area. Yeah, the grassy knoll. Sorry, no guns. But also, we're also getting working with one of the fire departments out there that has a brand-new fire truck that they need to train on, so they're going to be able to water it for us. So,
Hope they don't wash the grassy
Right.
away.
should not. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes. Okay, appointment to the Villa.
Mr. President, I would move that we approve James Paul Clemens' application to the Tippecanoe Villa.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Any unfinished or new business needs to come before the commissioners? Now, we have a report on file from the Tippecanoe Arts Federation and the Wabash River Heritage Corridor Commission. Those will be in the Commissioner's office for public viewing. Any public comment? Seeing none,
Move to adjourn?
meeting adjourned. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Yes, come on up.
I was waiting for the last.
Move to unadjourn.
Moved on adjourn. Come on up, Susan.
I'm so sorry. Do I sign anything?
Yeah.
If you would sign that.
Sorry. That came up quickly. Okay, thank you. Okay, my name's Susan Doster, and I wanted to comment, I guess I'll just start off with what I wrote here. As of 2016, there were about 31,000 Purdue students. About half of them were Indiana residents who could already have another form of state ID, but many of them did not. So theoretically, proposed solutions that we have today would impact around 20,000 of our present Purdue students. So when you think about it, that's a lot of voters. We're trying to get this, all of us, or many of us are concerned about this. It occurs to me that you 3 county commissioners have an opportunity to do something to make this right. People in our community, as we all know, I think it's a good thing. We like to talk about doing things to make our community feel more welcoming to the 40,000 plus Purdue students who live here. There's been a lot of talk in the last 10 years about making our county a place where many of them will want to continue to live and work even after they've graduated. I think everyone here would agree that's a positive. Having a reasonable system allowing them to use their government-issued PUID for voting is part of how we, in our community, have demonstrated our commitment to doing our part to make this a place where they want to live after graduation. Or we can let the Julie Roushes of the moment rupture our efforts to extend neighborly friendliness to these students by letting her campaign of disenfranchisement continue. So I'm just here to ask, what's your plan to make this right? As our county commissioners, you've been elected to hold a sacred power of where the buck stops in our county. I would encourage you to please do what you can to enable the, some 20,000 students who are likely impacted by the confusion and turmoil of Ms. Roush's sudden leveraging of her ability to disenfranchise their right to vote where they live. Please do whatever you can in your role as county commissioners to show respect for our community's future by enabling young people in our midst to vote, not making it a confusing message that disables practice of voting rights for any members of our community. So I thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any other public comment? Entertain your motion again.
Move to adjourn.
Meeting adjourned.